Hello, friends. Luiz Lima here from Orlando, Florida, to host another edition of Spiritism, a closer look. You are watching us on Kardec Radio. So, thank you very much for following us, and let's get to it. Spiritism, a closer look. Tonight's topic is going to be spiritual influences. Spiritual influences. This subject is part of the original codification. If you look into the Spirits book, there's a section in the Spirits book. It's actually in part two, chapter 9. The name of the section is "The Concealed Influence of Spirits on Our Thoughts and Actions." That's the name. And there's a set of 14 questions on the subject. It's a long subject. Those 14 questions alone, it would take us maybe a couple hours to discuss at length and with the, as deep as we can go. But that's not what we're going to do today. We're going to take a slightly different approach. We're going to use the first question 459, as a reference to get started, and then we will develop the subject into a more scientific way, scientific side of things. So, question 459 is when Allan Kardec asks the spirits, and the question is, do spirits have any, look at this, anything, do the spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? The answer is their influence on you being us, right, in this regard, is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who guide you. Well, that's a strong statement right there. It causes impact. So there are people. It gives us a bare idea of there's somebody running my life, if you will. Not to that extent, for the most part, but there's a part of it. There's an element of influence that is significant here, according to the spirits. So let's see how that happens, because it's not only the influence on our thoughts but also on our actions. Of course, actions. If you think about the physical part of it, if you take an action, if you, for example, raise your hand, it's a physical action that had initiated some time ago, um, milliseconds ago, in your brain, but the brain is responding to something else above it. So actions come from commands from the brain at the biological level, but those in turn come from the mind. So the influence on our thoughts will impact our actions. So one leads to the other. That's why the Spirit said it will influence on both. So let's think about this. We are beings that have a material component, that's our physical body, and a spiritual component, which is our spirit, our soul. But we are not set apart. We're not two. We are bonded together. These two are bonded together. The material, and so we perceive things in two ways. We perceive the material world, things that happen every day in our lives, and we perceive also the spirit world. So let's see how things happen here. To perceive, to participate and perceive into the material world, we need we use our five sensory organs. So eyes, ears, skin, nose, mouth. Those are channels or tools that allow us to interact with the material world. But none of those five. So first of all, these five sensory organs, they are located on the physical body. They are not located on our spiritual part, which is the soul. They are located on the physical body, and they allow us to interact with the material world. However, none of them are good to interact with the spiritual world. They're not the right tools to perceive and interact with the spiritual world. For that, we need other types of tools, other uh, uh, elements, and those are called vital centers or force centers, or in a very popular way, chakras. These chakras are the tools that we have to perceive and participate, if you will, in the spiritual world. However, they are not located on our physical body. They are located on what we call our subtle bodies. So hold on, we raise our two hands here. Subtle bodies, what is that? Yeah, we need to have maybe a 5 or 10 minute crash course on subtle bodies to understand how the influence from the spirits, meaning something outside the material world, influence of spirits are not perceived by our five sensory organs. They are perceived by our chakras, and they are on our located on our subtle bodies. So we need to understand what these subtle bodies are. So I'm going to bring you some images here because I think it's just going to be a little easier if we look at things visually. Visually, we can probably get more than if I'm just talking here. So let's bring this online. We can follow along together. As defined by Spiritism, we are what we see here is we are a spirit, we have a physical body, and there's an element of interface, which Allan Kardec called the perispirit, and that's what we see on the image. The perispirit set visually. This is a visual tool only. Is a visual tool to facilitate the explanation. So you see the perispirit situated between the spirit and the physical body, as if you were this element of link or connection. Now, on the Spirit's book and on the works of Allan Kardec, he mentions perispirit several times. He does several studies on it. But after Allan Kardec, several Spiritist literature and several Spiritist authors came along with much more information. Also, because science learned a lot more about the body in general, and we had better technology that allow us to find more things, how the body works, and so and so and so. Quantum physics came along to bring a whole different dimension to knowledge. So as this new literature, especially the ones by Spirit André Luiz, Brazilian doctor, discarnate, he says, well, for me to be able to explain what I need to explain to you, I need to break down the perispirit in smaller parts, smaller bodies, if you will. And that's what it does. So he breaks down the perispirit in three parts, and he calls the mental body, which is the part closer to the spirit, the spiritual body in the middle, and the etheric double, which is the part closer to the physical body. And these three bodies form what we call the subtle bodies. So I said the chakras are located on the subtle body. So they are here somewhere in one of these three bodies. What are these bodies doing? What is the purpose of each one? So it makes more sense to us to understand. So I'm going to start from the left with the mental body. Every time the spirit, uh, based on its sentiment, is going to take an action, is going to do something, you will. What you see here on the screen, by the way, from left to right, spirit, mental body, spiritual body, etheric double, and physical body, it works as if this was a production line. You can understand this, the mechanics of this, as if you were a production line that starts off the spirit, goes to the next one, mental body, then it passes along to spiritual body, and so and so and so. That's just for understanding the logic of it. Okay. And again, this is a visual representation just for understanding. We are not five parts. We are not a sandwich of five parts. Okay. So mental body is this. I'm gonna put in quotes, right? This first responder to what the spirit wants to do. Anything that we do, absolutely anything, before we do it, we think about it. We might not think consciously. We might not perceive. We might not, you know, find or identify it, but it is. We think, thought comes before action, and the mental body is what forms the thought based on what on the commands from the spirit. So the body produces what we call the thought form. What is a thought form? In an easy way, so we don't get too much off track here. When I think of something, you don't know what I'm thinking. I can tell you I'm thinking about this, this, and that, but I'm not. I'm thinking about something else. And you're going to believe what I said based on my verbal communication to you, not my actual thought, because you can't see it. In the spirit world, it's different. When I think, it's like if I were able to draw a little picture and raise up my picture to the spirit world. So now I thought something and I raised my image of what I'm thinking. So it's public now. The entire spirit world gets to see it. That little image, that little drawing is called thought form. We're going by analogy here. So thought form is this. So thought form is the mental body is the first responder to what the spirit tells it to do. He creates this thought form, and this gets passed along to the next body, which is the spiritual body. The spiritual body, it's our ledger that has all our debts and credits of anything that we do, wrongs and rights. It's all in there. It's our bookkeeping. So everything that we ever done, for example, let's say my thought form, the spirit is it wants revenge for some reason. So the thought form is myself, doing some sort of revenge, as if you were able to draw a scene where I'm making this happen. Then I present my thought form to the spirit world. This gets passed along to the spiritual body, and it goes in as a debt because it's something wrong that I'm doing. If I'm thinking about something good, doing some prayer, helping people, it goes in registered as a credit. Once this gets in there, it gets passed along to the next one, which is the etheric double. The etheric double houses the basis of each chakra that we have. And that's important because if you think about it, it starts from the spirit and it comes down or comes to the right side based on the picture. So when it gets to the etheric double, it has passed at least two filters, the mental body and the spiritual body. So the etheric double receives information that has been filtered based on what I'm thinking and my spiritual history. That's interesting because the spiritual history has a tremendous impact on how I perceive things. So when it gets to the etheric double, then it gets passed along to the physical body where some action is going to be taken. For example, raising my hand, or it could be something bad like slapping somebody on the face, for example, for whatever reason. But it all starts on the spirit. So we're not going to get any deeper than this on this particular talk because this is very deep, very profound. And this is all we need for today's explanation. So, subtle bodies, mental body, spiritual body, etheric double. That's all we need for now. Now, think about, for example, a person, an incarnated person, who is here represented by its three subtle bodies plus the physical body. So here's an incarnate fellow with his mental body, spiritual body, etheric double, and physical body. And this person is going to communicate or going to interact with another incarnated person. Also, here represented by their three subtle bodies and the physical body. So, what we have here is representation of the three subtle bodies and physical bodies for two fellows, one on the left side, one on the right side. When they interact, which could be a conversation, for example, one is speaking using the mouth and the other hears using the ears, for example. So any sort of interaction here goes from physical body to physical body. Always. There's physical presence here. Um, you know, you look at me, you use your vision, and you see me. You talk to me, and I hear you. So this is physical. This happens at the physical body level. So that's no news. Now, what happens when the interaction is not between two incarnate spirits? It's between one incarnate spirit and one discarnate spirit. So, to begin with, let's revise our picture here. Discarnate spirits have no physical body. Discarnate spirits have no etheric double. You see, the etheric double, because it joins the spiritual body to the physical body, it has to have a part that is material and a part that is not. If there is no physical body, this etheric double cannot have a material part, so it cannot survive, cannot exist. So discarnate spirits do not have a physical body and do not have etheric double. So now what we have is, in order for communication to happen between incarnate spirits and discarnate spirits, we are now limited to two possibilities. Either this goes from spiritual body to spiritual body, or it goes from mental body to mental body. That's it. There's not another possibility here. So let's try to understand what exactly is the spiritual body. Spiritual body, it's this bookkeeping that keeps track of debts and credits. It's not really something active that takes action, that does something. It's more like a passive body that simply, you know, keeps track of my spiritual history, my wrongdoings, my good things, evils, and goods that we do. So it's not really an action type body. So the communication cannot be from a bookkeeping to another bookkeeping. It wouldn't work. There's no action there. So automatically the communication has to be from mental body to mental body. And how is that done? Through thought forms. Remember the little picture that I raise when I think, not what I say, what I'm thinking, what I really think. The spirit world sees it as what we call thought form. So communication happens here between mental bodies. So all the influences will happen from mental body to mental body. And again, what is the mental body? The one that produces thought forms. So my mental body will respond to my spirit. But with influence from another spirit, it can also respond to another spirit based on the bond that is created between mental bodies. And this could be something good or could be something bad. You see, this is neutral. What's going to make it good or bad is what I'm thinking. It's my thought. So if my thought is always good all the time, I'm thinking about helping people, love, charity, fraternity, all those things. A spirit with a mental body thinking about revenge and destruction and whatever, murder, is not going to be able to communicate with me because there is no alignment, affinity on thoughts. It's like they're talking two different languages. So I wouldn't get to even feel what is throwing towards me. Now, if I'm on the same boat, if I'm on revenge mode, if I'm, anger all the time, they'll come around because that's what I'm lifting. That's my drawing. People, hey, you guys out there in the spirit world, I'm angry all the time. I want revenge. I want, you know, this and that. I'm intolerant. I'm impatient. They'll come around. And what happens to my mental body? It will take that influence, which could be very, very, very strong or lighter, but it will take that influence and come down the other bodies. You will pass it along to my spiritual body, etheric double, and physical body. So, for example, let's say I'm in a situation where somebody talked to me and I really didn't like the way the person talked to me. And now how should I react? Should I, just be aggressive? You kind of, maybe I should wait a little longer to see if this guy gets more aggressive, then I will react. So you're in terms of about to decide how you're going to do it. So aggressiveness is one of the possibilities. This all takes a few seconds, maybe a minute or so, but aggressiveness is a possibility. If it is a possibility, if it's something that I'm thinking of, I'm raising my drawing with aggressiveness. What happens to the spirits that want aggressiveness? They subscribe to the same thing. They'll come around and they will, start to throw their influences on me. Oh, yeah, you should be aggressive. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Don't take this back home. Oh, yeah, go ahead and do it. So my little bit of aggressiveness, which was something potential, because I was in doubt, I really didn't want to be aggressive. I was trying to avoid it. But now it kind of grew up. It grows because it receives all this influence. And then suddenly I'm just going to act very aggressively because that's what the thought forms I inherited from them because I was on the same affinity, level of affinity that they were. And the same goes for something good. If you're always thinking about something good, fraternity, charity, love, and so, oh yeah, the highly evolved spirits will come around. They'll be with us, and they will make us do more charity. They will make us more lovable. They will make us do the things that we want to do at a greater scale. So, going back to the core of this, how come they influence on us, on thoughts and actions? The graphic that you see here is what explains everything because of our thoughts. Our thoughts are always, regardless of what kind of thought, they are always invitations to the spirit world. Always. We will invite highly evolved spirits. We will, invite dark zone spirits. It all depends what goes on our mental body. You see, the mental body, as the first responder to the spirit, will follow what the spirit is saying. The spirit is where the repository of vices and virtues is. So every situation that I'm in, I can respond with a vice, aggressiveness being one of them, or with a virtue. And that's the great teaching from Jesus, which we call the other cheek, the other face. There are several different names for this. You bring hatred, I'm going to respond. I could, if I wanted to, I could respond with hatred. But no, that's not supposed to be, because I'm going to amplify my thought form to the level that I'm going to be, it's going to be disastrous. So you bring hatred, I'm going to use my virtues and respond with the other cheek, which is love. Bring me impatience, I'm going to respond with patience. Bring me evil, I'm going to respond with good. And so and so and so. The minute that I do this, I shut down the doors for everything evil, everything dark zones, or vices in general. That's one of the great teachings from Jesus. The other cheek, the other face, responding, turning vices and responding with virtues, never following the vices as a response. Because when I decided to respond to incoming hatred with outgoing love, my mental body now, as the first responder, will produce thought forms of love. All those spirits that were probably following the other person, you know, around hatred. Oh yeah, do it, do it, do it. They're gonna go away because there is nothing for them to do now. When you present your love thought form, they'll go to somebody else. They got busted, if you want. So that's I think the idea. That's only the first question of the entire chapter, 14 questions. That's just for us to understand how this happens. The other questions are about different things. I actually encourage you to read through the entire chapter attentively. It's very interesting. But I wanted to bring you this slightly different angle, if you will, on how things happen. And it all starts with our thoughts. Thought is the key for everything. Bad thoughts will make us suffer down the road or immediately. Good thoughts will not. They will improve our general well being, health, and everything that comes along with them. Thank you very much for participating with us once again here on Kardec Radio, Spiritism, a Closer Look. We are here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We will see you next time. Thanks so much. Be well.